Hi, and welcome to X Minutes. I'm your host, Steve Maier, and in this series, we're going to be talking about C++. We're going to be going over why we're going to use C++, what it's used for, and how to actually get started in learning C++ and developing for it. I actually do a lot of things with game making. I teach making video games at one of the top 5 game colleges in the country. And so we're going to do a lot of things that are very game related with this series. And we're going to do a lot of things with Visual Studio. This first video is just going to be a getting started. Let's get our setup going and let's see if we can get our Windows machine all set up to allow us to do some C++ programming. The first thing we're going to do is to go over to Visual Studio. If you have Visual Studio installed, that's great. If not, you can go over to visualstudio.com, and from here, you can download a version of Visual Studio, the Community Edition, and that's going to be free for students, for people doing open source, and for small companies. You can even get the Enterprise version for a 30-day trial, but the Community Edition is plenty for what we're going to be doing here in these videos. You can notice also that you have Visual Studio Code, as well as Visual Studio for Mac. Now, Visual Studio for Mac does not include C++ at all. It only has .NET in it. So to do this, we're going to be doing Visual Studio on a Windows machine, and we're going to be making sure that we have all the parts set up to be able to do it. I have here the Visual Studio installer. I already have it installed, so I'm going to go here to modify, and let's take a look at when you do a setup, you can choose what parts of Visual Studio are you going to be adding to it. If we take a look up here, we have our ASP.NET, Azure, Python, Node, .NET, and so you want to make sure to have the desktop development with C++ turned on and checked. Also, the Universal Windows Platform, because it can do C++ as well, checked. You can even do mobile development with C++. So we're going to have that one checked as well. We can come here and look at game development with C++. That'll be looking at OpenGL or DirectX. And the last one that I'm going to have turned on here is the Linux development with C++. We are going to be going over how to do some setup and how to do some compiling on Linux on your Windows machine. But once you get all this set up, then we're going to get started with Visual Studio. Now, Visual Studio allows us to create the project, and this is what you're going to see when you come up. On the right-hand side, now you can always clone a repository from source control, but what we're going to do start with is create a new project. What we're going to do is to create a few example projects in this video so that we can see what each of the different types will look like. So I'm going to come here and we're going to create a new project, and it's going to come and list out all the templates that you have available. I can come and drop down this list and choose a language, and that would give me all of the different projects for that language type. Now I'm going to come down here to a console application. So let's come down here to console application. We're going to start with that one. We're going to create, now it automatically creates a hello world program, which is really just a temporary, small, simple sample that you can get started with. So we're going to create that. I'm just going to let it be the name that it's given it, but you want to try and have a name that means something for the project you're working on. So I'm going to create this. So once this comes up, you'll notice that it comes up with the console application CPP, and it has a main in it. And if I click on this little arrow here, it says local Windows debugger. It will compile the program, make an executable, and run it. Notice it did come up here and say hello world. and then I can press any key to close that window. This is a console application. Most of the samples that we're going to be doing in the C++ series are going to be used with this console application. I do want to show you the other ones, because if you would like to get started in using C++ for mobile or for Windows development, I wanted just to let you know what you're going to see when you're going to do those projects. So I'm going to come up here and do File, and I'm going to say New Project. And I'm going to make sure I chose C++ again. Okay. And this time I'm going to search for UWP. Oh, and it's saying I need to do a install Windows Universal Tools for C++. So I can double click on it and it'll take me right to the installer, and it will install everything for me. Okay, I install it. And this will do a quick download and install everything I need. And we'll be back when it's done. Okay, it reopened up Visual Studio. And I'm going to not do the survey. Notice this was my previous project since it did an install. So let's try that again. New project. And we will try the UWP now that everything's installed. We're under C++, and we'll say UWP. And we can do a blank application. Sure, let's do a blank application. We'll create it. And let's see what this gives us. We have to choose what version of Windows that we're going to be targeting. You get to choose what target and the minimum based on what you have installed on your machine. So best thing is just use the defaults that are here. You'll notice that this is a lot more code here than our simple console and the hello world. So I'm going to come here and say at the top, the little arrow again, I'm going to click on that and start doing the compiling and the running and debugging this. So this will compile, and you might get some warnings down here and some errors, but it's still compiling. Sometimes in C++, those warnings aren't really accurate, but we now have a Windows application that was written in C++. And you're like, well, I don't see anything. It doesn't seem like it's anything. So what we can do is we can look here at what we have. Is we do have a main page.xaml. And if we double click on that, it will come and take us to a designer. And you can look at the XAML code directly, or you could look at the designer. And I am going to say, let's just look at the XAML code directly. And notice there's nothing in here. But I could come in here and do a button and say that the content of the button equals press me, end the button, and then I could say on click, and then create a new event, just double clicking there. And then in my C++ code, it made the function here for clicking. So I can put a breakpoint right here by clicking in this bar on the left-hand side. And now when I run this, I should see a big button that says click me in the middle of the screen. Actually, it probably takes the whole window. Oh, right there, press me. And then it takes us right into here. That is using XAML code for doing the designs. So it's more of a WPF, but it's doing the Windows Universal Windows Platform, UWP, for doing that. We have C++ for console. We have it for making a Windows program. Now, the last thing is, let's try and make it with an Android application, just to take a look at what it looks like. You'd have to set up also Android emulators, the SDK. Now, I make Android applications anyways, so I do have all that installed. I do use .NET and Xamarin. And our Xamarin series, we'll go over how to do that in Xamarin. Most people do not do this. They'll use either Java, Objective-C, Swift, or we're going to be doing things in Xamarin later in a different series. But just to show you how complete and how well C++ really works, we can come up here to say File, New Project. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure to select C++. And I'm going to type in Android here. And we're going to say a native activity application. And just name it whatever it's naming it. I don't care about that right now. The thing to look at with this is it actually is making us 2 projects. And so if we look at that over here, we'll see that there is one project, which is a native activity, and it is CPP for C++, and it is .c and .h. And then we have the Android packaging one, and that is going to not have the C++ in it. It's kind of a hybrid way of doing it, but it allows us to have C++ as well as Java or anything else that we need to have. You look at here and it has your standard C++ things, all of our pointers, which we wouldn't have that in Java normally. We have all of these different controls, classes and everything else, but it's just standard C++. And they even have this .c file, which is the glue, which is kind of pasting the C++ to the Java system of Android. Now, you'll get a similar thing if you were to do an iOS project. Like I said, most people do not use this. They will be using normal native code or maybe something like Xamarin or other cross-platform types of systems. Typically not going to be using the C++, but I just wanted to show you that it is something that is available. In this video, what we've gone over is the basic setup of Visual Studio on your Windows machine. We've taken a look at being able to run our console applications, even a universal Windows platform application, and being able to create mobile applications, whether it's iOS or Android. We will continue to look at C++. We will be looking at just using the console application to start with, and we may end up going to one of the other ones later on in the series for C++, but there's so much to go over with C++ anyways that we'll probably be sticking in the console applications for quite a while. All right, so thank you for joining. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our channel. We will be doing other cross-platform topics. Thank you very much.